Hello, hello, hello. Grand rising, beautiful people. My name is Lana Labonte and welcome to my living room. If you've never been here before, I am here to uplift, support, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you you are meant to be. We're not human doings, we're human beings. And we should be inspiring through our inspired action. Because essentially, you can't make anybody else do what you think they should do if you're not doing what you're supposed to do too. So what you do, you give others permission to do too for themselves, not just because you're doing it. This has been my personal philosophy on life, that through my personal experience, I have noticed that a lot of times my sisters, my mom, we used to always have these conversations around, you know, when you go shopping and you've got like that, you get that vibe going on and everybody's kind of moving and grooving. And my family, I grew up with a family of like dancers and just, you know, movement, fluidity, fun, laughter, play. We need more play, right? So my mom, my sisters, and I would go shopping and there'd be nobody. There'd be a big old pile of sale or something and we'd be looking through things. I kid you not, there'd be people reaching to take things out of our hands like, I want what she's got. We'd be standing in a line to pay, to leave, to check out. There'd be nobody. All of a sudden we'd look behind us and there was a huge line down the way. You know, like we had that magnetic vibe to draw people in that at a certain point, we realized she's got something I want. Now, that has its benevolence and its malevolence. You will attract where you're at. There are people who would be drawn to your vibe because they're competitive and they don't understand that they're capable of having the same without taking it from another, versus those who recognize that if she can have it, I can have it too. And it doesn't require me to compete with her for it or try to prove myself by taking it from her. The world we're living in wants you to compete with one another. The world we're living in doesn't encourage or foster collaboration. Did you notice that? That when you're looking around in the environment around you, like, why is there so much chaos, crime, disorder, rioting? It doesn't take much to look around you and notice that what you recognize outside of yourself is a mirror reflection of what's going on within. Sometimes you'll be like, why do I keep seeing this? Ask yourself, what is this situation revealing to me about myself? What is the message that is being revealed around me? Because we attract where we're at. And there may be just subtle hints, or there may be profound hints as to the work we need to do that's going on within us. I say this from personal experience because when shit happens, when the issue's showing up in my life, I'm like, dang, I gotta check in with myself. Hey, James, hi, Mish. Because when it's showing up in my world, then I know it's amplified in the collective. That's how my life has been. I experience things before they become more profound on the world stage. That has been the cycle of my life, that when something powerful has erupted in my own personal life that's taken me out for the count sometimes, I'm like, dang, okay, I was meant to have this experience so that I could also have compassion for those around me. To also notice that if I can get through this, anybody can. So that it's almost like I said, we have to live inspired. Through our inspired living will also inspire others. That if I can get through this, then others can get through it too. I've lost social media accounts, not once, not twice, not just 3 times, but 4 times. I can tell you right now, the first time felt like I was ostracized from society, because that was my wake up to see what was really coming down the pipeline. This was long before social media started having all this censorship, you know, the cut off your voice, cut out your tongue kind of deal, which is another form of what's happened in history. I mean, history repeats itself, but yet we're rarely learning from that. And funny enough, a lot of people forget history. And you know, they say, those who forget history are damned to repeat it. So let's say the first time it happened to me was in 2018. And it was like, whoa, I literally felt like I died. And then I had to sit with that and recognize I didn't, and that I was still there. But a lot of people don't see that disconnect, that we have become so dependent on these connections through these devices. They've become our vices. There is an addiction. There is a true mental health issue, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, the inability to disconnect from the device and reconnect with real humans and engage when you go to a store, as opposed to doing this all the time and you're just kind of, you know, yeah. And as tech has taken over, humanity has suffered. And I'm a person who comes from an IT background. So when I speak from that military industrial experience, that I was on the front lines of intelligence, of IT, back in the 90s. In the early 2000s, all the way until I finally cut out of it in 2011. Wait, no, 2013 is when I came back here from NATO. And so over these past few years, it's been really astounding to see how many people tried to point a finger at me and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I'm not here to prove anything to you, and I'm not going to try to force anything down your throat. I speak from my personal experience, and it makes it less exhausting for myself. Because when you live a lie, you've got to remember all those lies. And we have a world full of people who don't even know their truth because they've been living a lie for so long. And then wondering why they're exhausted, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Because it takes a toll on your physical being. That the BS, you know how I like to say, your belief systems, are what hijack you out of the present. And your presence is what is required of you to be in your personal power. Being present here now, in the moment, is where all your power resides. And the mind will hijack you into the past or catapult you into the future, which fragments your energy. You can't be in your power if your mind has placed you elsewhere. And that puts all of your energy elsewhere. And then again, it taxes the nervous system. It weakens the immune system. Most people don't realize that when you're not present, and that's where you come into the breath, when you're in your breath, when you're breathing into the moment, you're taking in vital life force energy. If you have gone into the past or you're projected into the future, your breath becomes more weakened, more labored. It will either stop and you don't catch it right away, literally, or it will slow to the point where it's shallow. You'll end up in your shallow breathing because it is shallow if you think about it. Not being here now in your presence, which is your gift to the world and to whoever's around you, it's like you want to be more mindful of what's going on here now in this moment. Everything else is just a construct, is just your BS taking you for a ride. And the ride is to solve problems that don't always exist. It's just a story constructed in the head about how I have to do this, but seeking a solution. I believe that all thoughts at this point, the more I sit with it, all thoughts are really problems seeking to be solved. And you're just the one creating the problem so that you can find the solution so that the mind can stay busy. And when the mind is busy, it feels it has accomplished something. And that's what reinforces the ego. See, I'm right. Ego, head, wants to be right. Heart wants to feel wants to be happy, wants you to be present. Because again, the breath, the lungs are in the heart space. They're not up here in the head. The head space is usually the one up in the clouds, right? And that's whatever cloud you want to think of. And so body awareness is so key in all of this, because the body is always telling on the mind. That's why I call it the tattletale. Body awareness, tap into your body. Ooh, I got an ache here, I got an ache there. What's that telling me about this moment? What was I thinking? Literally. The body tenses up in reaction to some of the thoughts that you think, because it's calling BS. It's calling out your BS. It's calling out your belief systems to go, hey, that doesn't align. That's not true for me. And because that's not true for me, it's causing self-inflicted pain. And we do that to ourselves. Do we realize that self-flagellation, that we're like, I believe this, but you don't. Your body's actually, Valley, there she is. I knew you weren't far along. I love that. I love that, because I had a feeling if I went live today, I would catch Valley. I was having a conversation via email with James. We were wondering where you've been. And I said, I have a sense, just like James and I were conversing, he checked out on me. He was checking in to see how I've been, because for 2 weeks I haven't been on live. And I have a couple things to reveal about that. Yeah, well, we're all connected. I just felt like what has been going on the past several weeks has been that a lot of people have been in deep reflection. And if you're someone who's tuned into yourself, you've been tuning out of all the noise. Because the noise is what really messes with us. And I was at the gym this morning with a girlfriend, and she was telling me she had devoted an entire week to her son, who was heavy into volleyball. And it's that season, and she was making sure he got to all of his trainings. And she said it was so loud. The sound, the noise. And I looked at her and I said, people rarely figure out that when you have overstimulation, loud noises, and she was in it for 8 hours at a time in some of these cases over these past couple of days, this past week. I said, overstimulation taxes the nervous system, so it puts you in chronic stress. It's a stress response to be on the, hey, there's all this noise going on around me. Whether it's the whacking of volleyballs all around you, or coaches screaming, trying to get them to perform. And that's stressful. And people don't think about that as the type of stress that would maybe run your system down or maybe put you out for the count. And she was like, yeah, you're right. Overstimulation, that's exactly what it was. And she realized that she wasn't putting her health above and beyond. And she started to feel under the weather while she was more concerned about her child's health. So it's always a lesson. There's always a gift, an opportunity in all of these experiences to go, wow, okay, this was my experience. Write it down in your journal. This is what occurred. And what we don't realize is even those sudden noises, catching yourself when you're like, does it jar you? Because that type of jarring response is your nervous system going into sympathetic response. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The fright, the flight, the freeze, or the, is there anything I can do for you? Fawn. Let me make everything better. Let me make sure everybody's taken care of but myself. Because that makes me comfortable so that nobody else's discomfort affects my comfort. So depending on how strong your nervous system is, will also determine how quickly you go back into parasympathetic, the rest and digest. Your sympathetic should just be a quick up, hyper alert, okay, just checking my surroundings, and then settle back into the parasympathetic. You can reset that just with your breath. But daily meditation, daily mindfulness practices are really what set a steady bar, a steady response, so that you're not, stuck in the sympathetic and then you're unable to go back to the parasympathetic. the average person doesn't bounce back as quickly because they're in chronic stress. They're in that chronic hyper awareness. And when you're in that space, essentially what's happening is you've got the cortisol being injected into your blood, which is only meant for short periods, which creates hyperinflation, inflammatory response in the body, whether it's the achiness of your joints or the backs and the, maybe you have IBS. Like I suffer from IBS for many years. Some of it was food related and some of it is actually stress, and I'm aware of that. So I actually have to be very hyper vigilant and calm myself, claim myself. And I understand that about myself. And that when my stomach gets inflamed, and it's not necessarily the food, I have to check what was my mood. And was I reaching for a food based on a mood? Like, I get that. So that's why I teach from that space of my own personal awareness, my own body awareness. The body is always telling on the mind. So sometimes these quick noises can catch us off guard, and we're not even aware that it may be something from an old trauma that we haven't quite yet healed. Or you may not notice that when you're in crowds, maybe you're hypersensitive to the point where you need to monitor because you're not strong in your nervous system, that your magnetic field is weak, that you have to be very attentive to where you place yourself, in what kinds of settings, what kind of awarenesses, your environment, like new spaces, you got to feel that out. Don't put yourself in places that are going to take you out, literally, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But that's part of the body awareness because you need to feel it. We could talk about human design, we could talk about astrology, we could talk about your numerology, your cards of destiny. We could talk about all the decode factors, but it's all, and those all apply. But the most important thing you'll ever do is tune everything out and tune in and tap into your body's wisdom. Now I've decided, and I'm saying this out loud now for my own accountability, that this is a workshop that I'm going to put online. And if this interests you, because I've already done body awareness workshops, I'm actually going to create a course on it. I'm actually going to I have a couple things in the works. I had originally started out a women in wellness program that I was going to do a couple years ago, but social media was keeping me quiet on that one. Can't explain that one, but it didn't want me to get anybody to even know about it. And then they killed my page. And that was before. So, these are the things I'm learning to navigate in these moments, that I have a wealth of information to share, but I want to do them in spaces that allow me to give the undivided attention to the people who show up, and that it's about people's willingness to show up. I could put tons of free content out here, but you know what? Not everybody's going to find it, and not everybody's going to do anything with it. So it's really about being selective in yourself about who you want to work with too. And these are beautiful ways to check in with our bodies, our body awareness. Because the body, yes, and the chrism too, we could talk about that, Mish. And what that really is tuning into your power days to when you rise your chrism, which there's a lot of different historical teachings on this. It's tuning into your astrological rhythm and flow. And also in the Kundalini tradition, we have something called moon centers. We have 11 moon centers, and you can use kinesiology, just tapping into which of your moon centers you're in, and they usually last about 2.5 days each. And you can use a pendulum, whatever it is, whatever works for you. If you have that kind of tool, we can talk about that in the workshop that I'll do. But essentially, you can tap into all these different ways of seeing, oh, I'm in my breasts, I'm in my nurturing phase, I'm in my mothering, I'm in the, I'm hyper. See, because the breast from nipple to nipple is actually an extension of your aura. Like we have the crown ear to ear. It's also for women especially, it's the breasts. You know, when women have babies, that extended aura, that extended magnetic field comes from the heart. There's so many different things that we can tune into. But the body is always going to tell you. And that's your tool. That's your GPS. And we really need to stop listening outside of ourselves and use our own tools. That's what this year is about, by the way. It's tuning out the noise. See, that's where I was going with this. This is what this is really about. This particular video was inspired by conversations with James, but also over the past couple of weeks, the things that, wow. Listing for a women's message here. Oh, that's so funny. And you put Claudio. Claudio is my Italian ex-boyfriend's name, by the way. We're here to learn to discern the noise from our inner truth. And the inner truth is also demonstrated by our physical being, our body. Our body will always tell in the mind what is true and what is untrue. And so much of what we want to cling to as our BS, our belief systems, is really untrue. It's just so much programming that we've been defending it for so long, we don't even realize we've been defending the lies we were told for so long. Every part of our body has an indicator. You know, our joints are all about movement forward, right? Knees, hips, everything. And when you really tune into it all, it's all going to tell you the story that you've been telling yourself. I know because that's what I've been decoding all these years. And when you live with chronic pain so long, and I was sitting on my mat a couple weeks ago going, wow, Lana, you've been working on this for so long. What's going to happen when you have all that free time because you're no longer in pain? My first Beyond Addiction program, before I became a facilitator, I recognized how pain can become an addiction. Especially if you've lived with it for so long, you don't know what it's like to be without pain. Because pain becomes your soother. Pain becomes your best friend because it's consistent. It's reliable because it always shows up. It's also unpredictable because it'll show up at times when you didn't least expect it. Or maybe it'll show up when you do expect it. It's just crazy how it only takes constituting 3 of the basic human needs, and that becomes an addiction. And that could be anything. And it can be promoting and it can be demoting. Everything has the flip of duality. Everything has the predisposition to create polarity. For this side, there's an opposite. For that side, there's an opposite. Exactly how yin and yang works. So it is an easy excuse. What happens when you got pain? You know, I don't feel like going out today because my back's bothering me. This is bothering me. And the more we don't tune in, and also sometimes we have to call out our own BS. You can't make this ish up. I'm doing it to myself all the time. I had my day on Saturday, and I was sitting in my deep rest. Something that I don't really, I'm going to be straight up because I think it would be inauthentic for me to say I've never dealt with depression. Anxiety's never been my problem. Depression has been one of the things that I have struggled with over the years. Not something I talk about a lot because there's a part of me that feels shame. And how many of us do? We are afraid that if someone hears me talk about depression, they're going to think I'm weak. They're not necessarily going to believe me either because look at me, I always put myself out there. So how could she be depressed? She's always serving. She's always doing this. She's always doing that. But do you know what? The face of depression is not one that is one you can make an assumption about. What looks like depression and what is depression are based on people's filters and their own perceptions. And if you've never struggled with it, it's easy for you to assume, well, that person doesn't look like they're depressed. How could they possibly be depressed? They're smiling all the time, but they're putting on a show. Or maybe they're not wanting you to be depressed or to feel bad for them because that makes them feel even worse. So hey Pamela, if you are someone who has struggled with depression, I'm here to tell you, there's nothing wrong with it. But I have recognized for myself, and it's something because I've had so much change happen over these months, especially this past year. Like this year really kicked my ass. I'm just going to say it. To the point where I realized, wow, I haven't felt this depressed since I was probably in my teens. And some of it was reminded to me because last year I went to my 30th high school reunion where I first experienced depression. And that depression came from someone I really deeply loved and cared for killing themselves. Like that at, was 15? In 1990. I was 15 and a half. And I just went into a deep depression because somebody I really cared for and the words that I spoke to them made me feel really super bad and made me think that maybe if I had said something more encouraging to that person, they might not have done what they did. Now, I've since grown up and recognized that it wasn't necessarily something I said, but it made me more cognizant of what I say and how I say it, and that I would never want to make someone feel less than or speak down to them. And in a lot of cases, now it's because I've experienced it myself that if someone speaks a certain way to me, I will speak up now. Now, I've had it happen where I didn't always speak up. Yeah, I kind of set back like, I don't want to rock the boat, or maybe I was even reactive because I've had those experiences too, where I just, I'm a Leo, so sometimes I'm like, I roar, I'm like, I don't like that, what have you. But when Tyler died, I went into a deep, dark space. I was in the suicidal tendencies. And it's not something that I wanted to die. I know back then it may have felt like I wanted to die, but I didn't. If anything, I feel like that I wanted someone to just be there for me, to also help me get through it. And my mother, she sent me to therapists. The therapists were pieces of shit, by the way. They didn't make me feel better. Because teenagers don't like to feel mocked or talked down to. They want someone on the same level. They want someone to feel like you're speaking to me like another human, not like I'm a child. Because teenagers are a lot smarter than people give them credit. Actually, kids are a lot smarter. Never speak down to them. If you can get on their level, like they're gonna teach you something. There is always something for each generation to teach. We're not meant to talk down to the new generation. We're meant to rise them up because, believe it or not, each generation that comes in is meant to improve upon the last. It's not the respect your elders and cower underneath them, because that is the old paradigm. That is the old Piscean age, that you're not supposed to do better than your elders. Like you're supposed to, basically bow down. Oh my God. Like the whole mindset is backwards. Indians know that in India, they treat their children like this child is going to clear my karma. They understand that the next generation is there to uplift and to elevate consciousness. We've just been belittled and talked down for so long. Oh, you have to prove yourself. Well, proving yourself typically means by withholding who your true nature is and going along to get along with the indoctrination system of education. Like our history, everything that we're taught is about being a good little doobie, doing what you're told, following the rules and the regulations, and also making sure that you police one another. I don't think it was like that so much when I was young, but I had a lot of rebellion. I had a rebellious streak in myself. Heck, I had a rebellious mom. My mom didn't want to be involved in any of that stuff either, and she could see through it. So if something doesn't settle right, if something doesn't feel right, tune into that. Sit with that. Be like, okay, what's off here? Speak to me, spirit. Speak to me, my oversoul, my higher self. Your higher self is typically all, we talk about prayer. You're really tuning in and consulting your higher self. Because I like to think of it as our bodies can't be inhabited fully by our souls because our souls are infinite. So your nervous system would be totally fried if every aspect of your soul was inhabiting your physical body. I think that the soul is just massive to the point where you just couldn't even imagine. And so the more we clear out the stagnation in our physical bodies, the more our soul can enter and the more truth we will feel, and also what will be revealed, because that's essentially the key, is what we feel is what needs to be revealed. And I mean, back in 2013, the message that I got loud and clear, we are not here to escape our bodies, people. We're here to be fully present in our bodies. Ground in. Stop trying to escape. Stop trying to go up in the clouds. You know, people talk about ascending. They talk about the whole higher light, enlightenment, yet they're so tapped out of their bodies, they have no clue. There's been a lot of infiltration in all walks of life. And even in the spiritual community, I learned so much coming from a military environment where there was so much structure to the airy-fairy flightiness of spiritual communities that have no grounding or structure. The teachings haven't necessarily been applied properly. I mean, I have a very creative brain, but I have a logical brain too. And I feel like I got a little bit of a mix of the balance of them to be able to create a harmony. And I see patterns. I see connections. I see cycles. I see things and know things because I've always tuned into that about myself. I'm a dreamer. I'm a visual person. And I can see almost like things are mapped out in front of my face half the time. So me trying to explain things to people sometimes is just not worth my energy. If they don't get it, they may not be meant to get it. Or not by me. They've got to figure it out on their own, right? So this whole love and light hippie movement was sponsored by Coca-Cola. I love that. That is so true. That is so true. There's, like I said, there's been infiltrations from, you know, all walks of life. It's all about the old-fashioned divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book, Psychology 101, How to Mess with the Culture. A cult. It's a cult of personalities. You get enough people convinced that there's us versus them. Really? Us versus them? I mean, I love my dad, and we have these conversations sometimes, and he gets into this lack mentality and a little bit of negative stuff. And most of the time, he is a big teddy bear. He's a big kid. He's really adorable, and he's hilarious. But I know when he's in his deep rest, his depression mode, and, you know, I get it because I've been there, done that, to where I'm like, Dad, I love you. But it's a little embarrassing when we go into these conversations around money because money is a tool. It's energy. There's nothing wrong with money. The idea that there's a separation between rich and poor is just a construct, and it's part of the infiltration. It's the idea that there's an us versus them when there really isn't. The reality is, yeah, don't throw your pearls to swine. That's a good one too. There's a lot of good quotes like that. But it's also revealing when people don't feel worthy when they speak about money in such a disparaging way. Or why would someone buy that? Well, it's not up to you to determine that being something good or bad. It's really just you're comparing yourself because that's what we do. That's what we humans do. It's a natural, most of the times unconscious behavior and action that we tend to look at things, compare ourselves, and judge on top of it. But when we're doing that judgment, we're doing that comparison, we're really just breaking our own hearts because really we're putting ourselves on display for where we feel unworthy. I don't like that. Is it because you don't like that or because you don't have access to it? And so sometimes that's how people uplift themselves is through the judgment that is about comparing themselves. That if they put something else down, then it brings themselves up. And in reality, it doesn't raise anything, but most of the times the person's blood pressure, and it's not serving them. So if you find yourself in those judgment spaces, find what you have to be grateful for. Okay, you don't like that. What are you looking at that you are grateful for? Because when you become so pigeonholed that all you find are those negative little things to talk about, you're actually creating your depression. Because you're creating those grooves, you're reinforcing those moods. And so I have been going through this, and I'm knowing that it isn't just me, that between trying to navigate the social media disablings, the attacks from people, which, you know what, I really don't care. But at the same time, I'm like, well, then how am I supposed to make a difference in the world if I don't have a connection to something other than my YouTube? So I'm grateful that I still have my YouTube. I'm very grateful for that, because I have built this up, and with the help of beautiful people like Julia and James. And, you know, I really appreciate all the connections we've made here, because it's important that we have these conversations and the authenticity and courage to reveal, hey, you know what? I suffer with depression sometimes. Doesn't make me a bad person. It also doesn't mean I want to be stuck down there in it, but sometimes I also understand the value of deep rest, to really get into the trenches, to really sit in your ish. Because believe it or not, just like they say, the lotus can't grow without the mud. If you're unwilling to get dirty in your own ish, which you created to begin with, how are you ever going to shine? You have to go into your dark for your light to illuminate. You have to be willing to recognize that dark is a beautiful aspect of yourself too. Yeah, it sucks. God knows I've been deep in it this past year. I'm like, mofo, this is not my stuff. I don't want this. But like I titled this video too, I want you to also step back, because I have to remind myself by saying this, that sometimes it's really not even yours. How often is that happening? Like, if you're so sensitive that you pick up on the pulse of the collective, are you tuning in to recognize it's not fully yours? You are contributing to that pulse of the collective consciousness, but how much are you taking in? So this all goes back to the empath. Are you a healed empath? Or are you that self-righteous, I am an empath, oh, look at me, oh, woe is me. The reality is there's a lot of people running around wearing that empath badge like a badge of honor, like, oh, I feel people's stuff. Oh, woe is me. No, most of the times you can't discern your own ish from somebody else's because they're triggering it. And that trigger is still your work to do, because you wouldn't be feeling it if it were already healed. I only know this because I've had to sit with my own, like, oh, I'm picking up on it. Is it my healed stuff, or is it being triggered, something that I need to still work on? That's a huge clue as to the work you need to do. So let's go back. Learning to discern what is yours and what is not. Yes, we all have an energetic responsibility that we are contributing to a lot of the stuff going on out in the world. But how sensitive are you? How selective are you to what the spaces you're placing yourself in, and how you're also honoring your own cycles? Because sometimes we're in cycles where you should not be going out into public. I know my biggest challenge is just getting in the car, especially now that we got so many people moving to Florida and we got a lot of people don't know the rules of the road. Okay? I'm one of those people, A to B. I just want to get to my destination. And so I'm very animated when I drive. I get it. And I'm like, yeah, yep. Today I was very patient. No biggie. And it's all humbling, and it's so comical, because then you can go back and go, look at you going on in your big old badass self. That's what makes you human. You should laugh, make fun of it, have fun with it, play, get back to the play. And I'll bring it back to the play because that is what resets ourselves. That is what allows us to tap back into, we're here for joy, people. We're not here to make so much seriousness out of this life. The life is about returning to the childlike play. That is really what we're here for. You know, there's so many different conversations around this world. It's a school. We're here to learn something. We're supposed to evolve and grow from this. Did you ever stop to think it just might be about having experiences and stop labeling them? That's kind of simple, isn't it? Like, we got to make it this grandiose, it's a slave system, we're here to learn something and we're supposed to escape this place so we don't have to come back and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got a crazy ass story about what we're here to do, yet they're not actually tuning into the fact that maybe they just have to have experiences and enjoy them. Find the joy, find the play, sit in your deep rest, sit in your ish. What if there isn't any explanation other than a simple one? We got to make things so complicated because that's the ego mind. The mind will do that to you. I want to be right. Yeah. Yep. Slow down. And that's another one. When your mind is traveling at a mile a minute, right? Disengage. Turn off the social media. Get away from, again, the vices, the devices, the vices. Same thing. Slow down. FOMO is a real thing. Fear of missing out. What are you going to miss out on? More drama, trauma, because that's what they're pushing. You know, the more they can keep you engaged, the more they can keep you talking about something that doesn't empower you, but actually sucks the life out of you. That's they talk about louche, right? Harvesting your energy. So it's really important that, number one, we're selective in where we place ourselves, but also selective in where we feed our energy. Something I said to James earlier. We have to be mindful about what we consume, because what we consume consumes us. That's a true statement. If you're not putting out content and all you're doing is regurgitating and taking in content, that could be the reason for a lot of depression. Hence why it may not be your ish. It may not be your own stuff. And especially like in the Kundalini world, we wear our hair up with a turban to contain our energy, because your hair, a lot of people know about this, your hair is like an antenna. If your hair is down, you're picking up, because there's that static electricity, your hair is picking up on all the energies around you. I rarely wear my hair down. I used to wear my hair down all the time. You couldn't get me to put my hair up half the time, except for when I was in the military and maybe I was in a professional setting. But essentially your hair is taking on all the energies around you. And if you're not conscious of it, you're wondering, why am I freaking out? There was an old story where a man came after Yogi Bhajan and said, my wife, she's crazy. She's just acting all crazy. And he said, tell her to wash her hair. Sure enough, that worked. It's the story. You know, they're all stories anyway. But when we're really mindful, number one, do you wear your hair up? Pay attention. Check how sensitive you are. You could check with kinesiology. Should I wear my hair up or down? Because maybe today you should keep it up so you protect your energy. Put a scarf around it, make yourself all pretty, do whatever you got to do to make you feel contained in your energy, so that when you go out into the world, you're not taking in more than you're bringing out. Yeah. And like the dream catcher, like the web, right? In Indra's web, where all the stories are interwoven, and the hair does it too. My hair gets tangled like crazy. So I like my hair down, but I also know the importance of keeping it up too. And then I like to do this. What's the weather out there in the collective? Am I going to leave my house today? I am not the type of person who likes to hermit a lot. I actually like people. I like to interact. I like to engage. I like to really have conversations. I will talk to people all the time that I've never met before. I will go somewhere. I will strike up a conversation in a checkout line, what have you, at a bar, not like a real bar, but like a juice bar or something, like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, I like your hair. I like this. I like that. Because to me, that's how we humans are meant to thrive, is through relationship and how we relate to one another. Life is about relationship, and the first most important relationship you have is with yourself. And so when you're tapped into your own stuff, it's easier to tap into other people's stuff. And so here we are, tuning in to the energies of the collective. Everybody's been going through something. You have to really get do that check-in with yourself. Is it mine? Is it my burden? Is it my bish? Is it my ish? What is really going on? I brought up the depression because I actually was going through a couple weeks of slump, really. And I'm like, ugh. Like where I didn't even want to go to the gym. And I'm the first person to say, I love going to the gym because I know to move my body. That's how I get energy out of myself. Like when I feel really like heavy, itchy, icky, like I know my body needs movement. Because you got to move the energy. You got to shake it out because that also increases the happy hormones when you move your body. And it also increases your breath, and it also brings, the heart coherence, especially when you move with community. Humans in unity equals humanity. And we're meant to be in union, in communion, community, right? Thank you. I appreciate that, Valley. You're so awesome. And the 5 Tibetan rites are great too. I always start out in my bed. I put my legs up above my head, legs up the wall kind of deal. And I rotate my wrists and ankles because a lot of stuff gets stuck in our joints overnight. And I want to point, flex, rotate out, rotate in, get the ankles and the wrists, lubing up the joints. And the feet over the head is like a dose of coffee. Don't even need coffee. I love coffee. I actually went a couple weeks without coffee and had one the other day. Boy, did that taste good. It hits different when you haven't had it for a couple days. And then I bring my knees into my chest because, again, that's going to put pressure on your intestines, your organs, so that you can, and then twisting your knees to the left and twisting your knees to the right and going back and forth. And it's all about stirring up the digestive tract, waking it up so that you'll have your first BM in the morning, not later, not just once, a couple times is good. And then I get up and I do my brushing. I clean the monkey glands, which is basically you take your toothbrush and you scrape the back of the throat because you're going to have at least 3 phlegm globules that will come up because your body stores them the different ways that you get rid of toxins: blood, sweat, tears, urine, phlegm. And so you got to get it out. So you scrape, and yeah, you're going to cough it up, and hopefully you don't have a gag reflex issue, but it's essentially quite helpful because it'll also tear your eye ducts, which is really important to clear out in the morning too. After I've done that, I scrape it off my tongue too. I actually use a spoon. I know there's tongue scrapers out there. I don't like the scrapers that they have because then all the saliva and everything goes over the scraper, so you don't necessarily get it all out. The spoon that I use, it's round and it scrapes it out with the spoon. I do that a few times. I do that at night too, scrape my tongue. Then a cold shower. Ishnan, which is known as cold therapy, where you get cold because what happens is it brings the blood to the surface of the skin, and that's for inflammation too. So you want to rub, when you're in there taking a cold shower, you want to rub where the lymph systems are, right? I know I'm probably scrubbing over here. But you want to create this movement so that the blood coming up to the surface of the skin is taking in more oxygen through the skin. See, a lot of people don't realize this. You don't just breathe through your nose and your mouth. You also breathe through your skin. It's your largest living breathing organ. Again, these are all body awareness techniques. These are things I've been doing for years. I also have a brush for dry brushing. And the way that you start with dry brushing is you start at the palms, the tops of the hands, you start at the bottoms of the feet, you work your way toward the lymphatic areas. So the lymphatic area under the arms, the lymphatic area in the inner groins, the stomach has lymph areas. So you always bring it toward those areas, toward that midline. All very important. There's a lot that you could be doing. I mean, you can be doing a whole lot all day if you were doing all of it and then some. And it's like, there was a joke when I was doing my teacher trainings with Kundalini. It's like Yogi Bhajan would say, you should do this every day. And we were joking that we need about 48 hours to do all the stuff that he said that you should do it within, every single day. It's just a comedy. Life is a comedy. So you choose what works best for you. Oh yes, and a rebounder too. I also have a rebounder in my corner. I haven't used that in a little bit. But if you're somebody who struggles with incontinence, that will build up your pelvic floor. See, I do so much breath work and I do other exercises that strengthen the pelvic floor. Like some people call them Kegels, but it's also contracting the anus, the sex organs, the navel center. It's the root lock. That's also the same thing as a Kegel. And when you do this regularly, you're strengthening the pelvic floor. You need a strong pelvic floor because how else are you going to be able to, you know, maintain tone? You've got to tonify your body, baby. It's an inside job, and that's inside. So yeah, we have the rebounding on the trampoline, and then there's all sorts of different acupressures and things like that. Kegels, especially if you've given birth to children. Yes, beautiful. I love it. We're all on the same page. There are so many techniques, there are so many tools, but ultimately everything you need and have is within you. So where really this year is about discerning and tuning out from the external noise and tuning in and tapping into your internal wisdom. Learning to trust yourself is going to make life so much easier for you because you're not going to be taken advantage of or caught off guard from the external if you're tuned into the internal. If you notice something catches your attention on the external, it's almost like, okay, where does this resonate? Does this ring true for me? And when you can slow it down, you can go within and not be taken out. Funny how those words always play together so well. So depression is not a bad thing. Now, when I was younger, it was rough because I was navigating. Like when we're kids, when we're teenagers, like I think it's very common for teenagers to go through it because if you don't have a good, strong support network, if your parents aren't as involved with you, if you don't have peers that support you, and that's got to be the toughest. And when I think of like these past couple years, how conflicted people have been with each other, that a lot of the younger generation is really the ones that have suffered. I think of my niece, and she's a perfect example, my niece and my nephew, because my sister's up in New York where she had to pull the kids out of schools that were not supporting them in their special needs programs. And that alienated them from a lot of the kids, a lot of the different environments. And so when you're alienated, I know the fleur de lis, I love the fleur de lis, and in yin and yang too. And so my niece and nephew have been, I find it's a form of punishment to where, unfortunately, children become the product of their parents. And my sister is very much about educating from that position of internal power rather than complying and going along to get along. I mean, that's just how we were raised. So it's only natural that's how she's raising my niece and nephew. But my niece is a teenager now. In fact, this year she'll be 14. And that's one of those tough ages that when you don't have close friends and you feel alienated, you feel alone. Although my sister can have the conversation with her around, you know, what's really most important is that you're good with you. But she still needs her peers because we grow in relationship by seeing others and mirroring and, you know, like that's communication skills, and that is also expression and learning to, you know, adapt and adopt your own style, your own lingo, your language, your identity. All of that is so important. Yes. And so even adults, all of us are going through, I feel this is a huge rebirth for a lot of people. Now, for some of us who've been on this path for a very long time, I'm speaking for myself especially, this is not my first rodeo where I've grown and evolved to the point where people fell out of my life and now I'm at that next level, but other people who, you know, it feels lonely sometimes. Come on. I mean, I see that from my niece in the respect that she's doing it at a young age, that she doesn't have a lot of people. So the circle being small is already challenging. having been through it a few times in my life, it doesn't make it any easier or make it better, but it sucks because then when you find yourself in a space of, wow, that's what I'm left with. Oof. I need to place myself in new environments. I need to like look at new spaces and try new things, which is perfectly fine. And we're all able to adapt and overcome. That's what flexibility and resilience is about. That's part of what this year is going to teach you, whether you're willing to put yourself out there or you're going to stay small, keep, your distance. Like that's not going to serve. This is the year to really challenge yourself. Yeah. It's I want more for myself, but I also want to give more of myself. And that can be scary. And so the deep rest is an opportunity to go within and to really look and reevaluate. What is it? What am I afraid of? Like that's what the deep rest is. That's what shadow work is. That's doing the work. I mean, there's so many different terms that have been thrown out there. Yes, service to others. But sometimes that service to others has to come from that servicing yourself first. If your cup's not full, there's no way you can pour from it. And I've known that for a very, very long time, that myself, I've got a ton of energy. And there are times people can't handle my energy or they can't really take in what I'm dishing out or what I'm speaking about because maybe I'm like a fire hose to them. And I'm aware of this. I wasn't aware of this for a very large portion of my life until I had a conversation with a coach one time, and we were just going at it and we were just back and forth, and he was just as much of a fire hose at me, but I could take it in and he could take in my fire hose. You know what I'm saying? Like when someone can keep up with you when you're having a conversation. And it was just, and those are the peeps you need to be around, or the ones that can work with your energy and you can work with theirs. So that's where I say you have to be very selective where you place yourself, those spaces that you actually enter, but also the people you allow into your space. Make sure that you're honoring the sacredness of your energy, because otherwise people can become parasites. They can feed off of you. And you may not realize it unless you've gone through a few rounds of, oh, why am I feeling so exhausted? And you go home, you're so depleted. And then you're thinking it's because you're depressed or something else. But the reality is you just placed yourself in environments that weren't serving you, but you were pouring from an empty cup, or maybe you poured it all out. So that's where we need to learn to discern our energy from others. We all go through it. When I have done it and I forget, I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything. Like I've had days where I wake up and I'm raring to go and I got all this ambition and I've got my list of things I want to do and I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, I'm jazzed. I'm stoked. I got this whole vision. And then I'm like, something happens and I'm like, okay. So you're like some sort of documentary or something I can watch. I don't know. And I've been going through it off and on. And I've got a lot of things going on around me in my life, with my house, with trying to move and shake, and also because there's another thing. And I know this may not seem like a really big thing, but for a long time, and sometimes it's because I get so in my head about how it's going to sound and who it's going to upset, and writing my story and writing my book, that I have fear around. And there's nothing wrong with fear, by the way. Fear is a teacher. Fear is just like pain. Fear and pain are the same damn thing, by the way. Fear is a teacher. And the reason why it's a teacher is if you can't face the fact that you have a fear and acknowledge that you have an apprehension, what good is it? Fear isn't a bad thing. Fear is there to teach you. It's there to serve you. It's your head and your ego that created the story around it that made it what it is. So when you trace back whatever fears you have, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, because it's not about what the fear is. It's about the story behind it that created it. When things come down to the bottom line, fear doesn't just exist because you got a fear. There's a story behind it. There's an experience you've had that created the story. And that goes back to trauma, and that goes back to where every single one of us has something to work on. There's always going to be another layer to peel away, just like onions. There's going to be some tears. It's a natural thing. Core BS, exactly. You're talking my language. That belief system. Damn. Ego's over there going, oh shit, I think someone's figuring me out. Calling me out for my stories, my constructs. Ugh. But haven't you noticed? Head always wants to be right. But it's about the heart. The heart is what needs to be happy. The addiction to our stories, our belief systems, our BS, that is the biggest addiction we all have. We will defend them long before they're relevant. But see, that's the irony, isn't it? How long are you going to continue to defend something that's not even serving you? That's how you know how strong your ego is. Always tapping into, you know when it's a fear because it's coming from the head. You know when it's love because you feel it in your heart. So if you feel, there's a clue. And when I say feel, I don't mean emotion technically. I mean like you got to tap into whatever your inner authority is. In human design, they call it inner authority. For me, it's sacral. It is like a hell yeah or a hell no. And I'm not here to have other people tell me. That's part of my knowing. I'm here to know thyself. And that's where I teach from. Now, that might not work for everybody, and that's okay. I'm not here for everybody. I'm here for those who need me. You know, like they say, you attract where you're at, magnetize, draw in. We're not here to force anybody. And if we're forcing somebody or trying to force somebody, what's that telling us about ourselves? That we're not taking a clue, we're not looking within ourselves. Because I can't express something that I don't already feel and rings true for me. It just doesn't resonate. I will come from integrity and authority of myself rather than tell a story to make shit up. Because when we tell lies, you've got to remember those. That's exhausting. And that's what a lot of the world has been doing, is living lies and wondering why they're exhausted. It takes a lot of energy to keep up with the lies, to continue to live the lies. That's what ages us, is when we're not congruent, when we're not coming from our truth. And again, that's why the body awareness is so key. It's because the body will always tell on the mind. So if your BS is outdated, oh, thank you. I appreciate that, all of you. If the body is calling out your BS, listen. If you're someone who's dealing with chronic pain, it's typically because there's a lot of outdated BS. And I speak from personal experience. The spine is a direct reflection of the mind. How flexible are you? If your spine is not flexible, then that shows how dogmatic our minds are. And inflexibility in the body is inflexibility in the mind. It's a simple translation, but we humans, we want to just, Okay, so they've taught us so much about how we should be victims of our circumstances. We should be, oh, it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault. Displacing the blame as opposed to taking personal responsibility and being accountable for the choices we've made. It's one thing when you're a child and you don't have a whole lot of control over your world. But when you become an adult, you're no longer that child at the disposal of the adults that had brought you up. And so, yeah, we have to clean up that stuff. We all have to do it. We have to look back and have some forgiveness. But don't go falling into the healing space and thinking that you're broken. Every single experience that you've had has contributed to the adult that you are. And so wherever you're at, honor that. And give yourself a pat on the back. I made it this far. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. How amazing is that? What a blessing. What a blessing that I'm in awareness and I am here now in this moment. I made it this far. That maybe a week ago I felt like crap. Maybe a week ago I was in my ish. All I wanted to do was just go curl up in my bed because my bed is so beautiful. I'm telling you right now, my place to hang when I'm in deep rest is in my bed. I don't want to get out of my bed. It's just so comfortable. And it makes me feel supported. I'm a Leo. That's my den. I like my comforts, my creature comforts. I'm not in a relationship, so unfortunately I don't have a big, strong man to put his arms around me and go, it's going to be okay. Okay. That would feel really good right now. But I'm okay with that, not having that. There are moments I have my little, I have my conversations with my higher self. I'm like, I'm just going to tell you right now, this is my year, and I'm demanding you deliver on it, and I'm not putting up with a no. Sometimes you got to have those conversations out loud, like really, right? I have a lot of Cancer in my chart too, by the way. So although I'm a Leo with a Libra rising, I'm all about balance. I'm all about balance. I like to roar, but I'll back off like a purring kitty cat too. Like, but I'm sorry about all that. I'm a big girl. I'll pull up the big panties, whatever. But I have a Capricorn moon too, so I'm kind of hard on myself. But I got a lot of Cancer, and I'm all good. And I have a lot of respect for anyone out there. If you're dealing with any form of depression, remember that's deep rest. And acknowledge the fact that there's a gift in it. That in those moments, when you are feeling at your worst, go look in the mirror at yourself. I've had to do this many a time. The mirror is your friend. You know why? Because you can't avoid yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, a lot of times people do this, right? Don't do that. Give yourself the honor and the respect that you deserve. Stare into your own eyes. Look at yourself deeply and say, you know what? I'm sorry you're feeling this way. I really am. And just remember that this is a choice, that you get to feel this way. A lot of people don't realize they're choosing to feel the way they're feeling. But if you're going to feel it, remind yourself, feel it fully so that it gets revealed fully. Because the real healing comes in feeling. If you're unwilling to go into those deep, dark spaces, what makes you think you're going to come out with that bright light? You can't go out into the world fully if you don't go deep inside your own world fully. So looking in the mirror, honoring yourself where you're at, wherever that may be, whenever it's the hardest. That has been the gift that I have learned from my own experience. It hasn't always been easy. Like, there were times where I really didn't think I wanted to be in this world, but then I every time I confronted myself, I'm like, no, I want to be here. I know I chose to be here. It's just a shitty time. It's a hard, rough patch. But that's what's teaching me, that I have resilience, that I am stronger than I give myself credit for, that when it feels like I'm alone, and it has felt really lonely this past year, by the way, and I can say that, it hasn't been the easiest year to where I could count a lot of people that had my back this past year. And that really sucked. Now, I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm just saying that because you're not alone if you've been going through that too. And that all that does is reveal to you that you are leveling up on your energetic evolution, that your vibration is going somewhere that other people can't keep up with. That when people fall out of your life, it's probably because they're not willing to continue with you. And that could be part of a soul contract, whatever you want to call it that. That you showed up in each other's lives for that period, and that's all that it was. They talk about for a season, for a reason, and then it's time to go. short cycles, long cycles. We all have people. I went to 3 different high schools growing up. I have a huge plethora of experience of adapting and becoming flexible to my environment. Sometimes that's exhausting. Right now where I'm at in my life, I want to be traveling again, but yet I've got myself in a situation where it's like, oh shit, have I just grounded myself, or am I going to be wandering between? I don't even know. I don't know all the answers right now, and I'm okay with that. Some part of it anyway. But looking in the mirror and reminding yourself, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. And at any moment, you're going to have the opportunity to choose. Like, you may even catch yourself. Like, a lot of times what happens with me, when I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like laughing at myself. I'm like, here we go. Here we go. Damn it. I'm calling out my own BS. I'm looking myself in the eyes. Like, yeah, I see you. I see you. You know you're choosing this. You better sit real deep in that crap, and you better feel that fully. And when you're ready, you know you can change that at any moment. And then I'm like, oh. Like, that's the play of this life. Is you get to play with yourself. And if you can't play with yourself, what makes you think you're going to be able to play with others, right? Yeah, and you know what's funny? My bracelet last summer, this is Saint Germain, which is the 7th ray. So 7 is a really powerful number for me, and I didn't even realize it, but it's also in my phone number. I won't say it out loud here because I might end up with a bunch of phone calls, but but there's a bunch of 7s in my phone number, my personal phone number. So it's interesting. Numbers resonate for sure. I was born at 10:38, you know, like, it's just crazy. Wherever you're at, just remember, honor that, but also remind yourself to check in. Is this even mine? How many of us are just like accepting that, oh, I feel like shit, and like as if it's yours? Maybe that isn't even yours. Like, maybe it's a story you took on from your parents. Maybe it's a story of a friend you were just hanging out with because you're so sensitive you don't realize you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of negative Nancys and whatever names, what have you, recognize that. Unless you are really high in your energy source and able to influence others, which is very rare, by the way. When you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are not necessarily vibing at your level, sometimes they will bring you down to their level and you won't realize it because you're not cognizant of your own energy. We need to be tapping in and trusting our into me, I see, intuition, because that is going to tell you your truth. And so sometimes I use my necklace as a pendulum, and I will ask myself, what is my yes and what is my no? They're pretty standard. Everybody might have a different, you know, your yes might be going forward and back, or to the right and the left, or it might go in a circle, or your maybe, you know, like you got to know yourself. But always ask, what is my yes? What is my no? What is my maybe? Or I don't know. So there's so many different tools here, people. But the most important tool you have is yourself. And everything you think is influencing everything you speak and feel. And remember, words have power because they're casting spells. So always choose your words wisely. Choose because you are also choosing your experience in all this. So when we are thinking problems seeking to be solved, remember, your mind is the bank. Your thoughts are the currency. And what you are paying attention to is literally paying for your experience. So yeah, it's okay every once in a while you're going to need to go into the deep rest. You're going to go into those deep, dark crevices and have to sit in your ish and your muck and your grunk and all this junk. But on the other hand, you have to come out of that at some point. You know what goes down must come up. And when you go so far down, you know there's only one direction back up. But again, where attention goes, energy flows, and you are paying for every experience through your thoughts and the currency and the frequency and the waves and the attention you're giving it. So yeah, it's okay. We're going to all dive deep and then we're going to rise higher. The deeper you dive, the higher you rise. That's been my experience, and I have to remind myself just by saying it now, because it's been a rough month. I hope this wasn't the sneak preview to coming attractions. Actually, I'm just hoping that it was my, January reflection period. I didn't consider this part of the new year, if you know what I mean. In fact, did we talk about the fact that, I think the story that I read, or somebody was telling the story, that the real first day of the new year is March 31st, because that's why the people that lived in the city would go out to the farms and they were still practicing the old New Year cycles, and they were making fun of them on April Fools and calling them April Fools for practicing the new year on the 31st. Anyway, I thought that was really fascinating. I totally resonate with that. It makes sense to me. I'm trying to see the live chat. I have trouble seeing these sometimes. And it cuts off just noticing this. So yeah, we had a lot of planets in retrograde, but here's the way I see astrology. I don't know that everybody sees it this way. A lot of astrologers, I listen to it all. Don't get me wrong. Again, I consume a lot of content just as much as I put out. No, I don't put out as much as I consume. I admit that. Astrology is like the weather. And if you think about how the original astrologists mapped the heavens, as they called astrology was mapping the heavens, right? They were actually mapping according to what was going on, not the other way around. Astrology is a tool to give you an insight into the energies that are working through us. I know they'll say, well, Saturn influences this, and Mars is the planet of war. Mars is telling you what's going on within us, not Mars influencing it in us. It's the other way around. I mean, there's a synergy, don't get me wrong. But when you were born into these aspects, is to tell you what is going on within you. So when you look at astrology, look at it like the weather. Here's the influences of the collective, not what's influencing the collective. Excuse me. Excuse me. I swallowed a little saliva the wrong way. Pardon-moi. Oh my goodness. So we are not victims of our circumstances. And so a lot of what's going on in the world, they'll tell you, here's the weather. But the weather's also a reflection of us too. And I know there's a lot of manipulation across the board on everything. Exactly how I use it, James. I use the astrology to go, what am I feeling today? What's the theme that dropped in for me today? I get so much that downloads and processes through me. It's one of the reasons I started doing videos. When not YouTube, because I wasn't doing them on YouTube originally. When Facebook first introduced videos, live videos, I was like, I'm going to do that. Because I was writing blogs like crazy. And then I decided, I can get more out just by speaking it out. And then I could transcribe later. Or sometimes what I do is I journal my day as it's going on. And then I'll do the video later. That's what I was doing for a while. But I got way too much going on in there. And so now I'm just sitting with what can I deliver? What's going to just deliver? And when I feel, really, I've been wanting to do more videos, but I'm not sure what's going on with the algorithm with YouTube, because I understand they want to give more attention to shorts, and I'm really confused about the whole thing. I have to do a little research. I don't know. But anyway, everything around us is just a mirror to give us feedback as to what's going on with us. So where attention goes, energy flows. If you wake up in the morning and you catch yourself in one of those not so great days, you get off on the wrong side of the bed, look in the mirror, check yourself. You can always reset, recalibrate. You can always reclaim the moment by getting present. Breath work, breathe into it. You know, you cannot let the mind hijack you into the past or catapult you into the future if you are present with your breath. The breath will always bring you back to the moment where all your power resides. So when you breathe, breathe it in. Take it slow. When you slow down with the breath, the breath is your life force. It's there to remind you of your power. That every breath is how much Source loves you to keep you alive. So just in that reminder of the gratitude for like the breath of life, we chose to come here, have all these crazy experiences, and then have these conversations around it. And yes, we are seeking our tribe. I guarantee that's a given. That's a given. Who did I decide to and make a contract with that I'm going to meet up with and we're going to do all this amazing stuff together? Of course. But can you be okay with when it happens instead of predicting when it's going to happen? Or like, I was looking at a young girl today at the gym and I was thinking and reflecting upon my younger self. And I looked at her in admiration around, I don't know that this is true, but it brought something up in me. I don't know for her. When I was younger, I just loved to hang with people. And I was seeking people to connect with, of course. I think that's a natural thing when we're young. And you know, when you have a little crush on someone, you hang out a little bit. I think the full moon is on the night of the 5th, the 6th. Let's double check. I'll look it up over here. I got my computer open anyway. Let's see. I was going to ask Siri, but she might actually pick up over there, and I don't want that happening. The full moon in Leo, by the way, too. Yep, here we go. February 5th is what it says on here. It says it carries some shaky energy, revealing to us what is no longer stable. Listen, shake up, shift out what's no longer serving you, get rid of the junk, the excess. It's in Leo. We're in Cancer right now. The moon is in Cancer right now. My body is and you know, here I am talking about body awareness. Leo rules the heart and the lungs. So again, you're going to want to do a lot of breath work and slow it down. Now you could do left nostril breathing for this. You could do taco tongue. You could inhale through the tongue in a long, slow, deep, and then exhale out the nose. Whatever you choose to do, the moon energy is left nostril breathing, or you could do the Sitali pranayama with the taco tongue. It says, my body is my temple, my heart is full of peace, my mind is clear and open, and I am ready to release. I release all that is heavy. I release all that weighs down my soul. I let it go. I let it go. I am restored and whole. My energy does flow. I am in my power. I am in my strength. And from this place, I hold the light for myself and the world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My space is cleansed with the power of love and light. My space is divinely protected. All is safe, all is well. May the energy of the space bring peace to all those that enter. May the vibrations of calmness, understanding, and compassion flow through the space for today and for all days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So it says, under this full moon, ask for support in the next steps that need to unfold to turn your wishes into realities. Ask that all will unfold in perfect timing and for my highest good, sending gratitude and love to the heavens and above. Thank you. So, and I was looking for the time on this. It just basically says it's revealing to us what no longer is stable and serving. And it's offering lightness, reminding us to shift our rigidity to a place that feels freer and more aligned with our authentic selves. I mean, this is a given. So Leo is all about fun, play, and heartfelt, like, life. Enthusiasm, excitement, vigor, creativity, connection, heart to heart. Everything is from the heart. We want to connect with one another from the heart. That's our nature. And our nature nurtures. What are you all feeling? Let me know what you're feeling for this period. I mean, I know what I'm sharing is what I was feeling for myself, but also tuning in and tapping into the collective is that, you know, like I was conversing with James about it, is my sense has been, if I've been going through this deep reflection, I can only imagine that I am not alone in this. That many of us have been going through such a metamorphosis, especially after this last year, that our worlds have been shaken to the core for a good reason, to clear it out. Like, you know, burn, baby, burn. Burn what doesn't serve. Let it go. Yeah, some of us been holding on to some things that, you know, it's time to just toss it. And I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. Slowing down. I mean, that is just the given as it is, because so many of us are on the go. So we need to slow down. And that's why we've been resetting and maybe disengaging from certain circles, certain environments. I went to 2 events over the past month that made me go, wow, yeah, maybe I have outgrown a lot here. Yeah. And a lot of our seeds that we planted a while ago may be coming up and we're not realizing it yet. Because, you know, sometimes what churns up, and this is something I notice, there's grieving before the loss. A lot of people don't tune into that grieving. We grieve before we lose, because our energy picks up on the changes before it fruitions and presents itself. Have you ever noticed that? So I changed my studio. I left my studio that I had been going to and teaching at since 2009. That was huge for me. So that was a process of grieving something that no longer is in my life. That was huge for me because I left the day after Veterans Day. And then through the holidays, having to recognize that I was busy working on some training stuff and then going, wow, I'm actually grieving the loss of all of that had been in my life for so long. What used to be, for me, a place of refuge, a place that I did a lot of my healing work, a lot of my reclaiming myself. I don't want to... Healing, I'm changing this whole healing conversation around, you're not broken, nothing needs to be fixed. What you need to do is reclaim those pieces of you that you maybe are scattered and fragmented. And so there's a lot of stuff coming in for us too, to replace the emptiness, the void that many of us have created as a result of letting go of things in this past year. So you also have to recognize some of the grieving that we are experiencing is the realizing that something new is coming. We didn't realize, because we're used to a certain lifestyle, used to a certain, habit, routine, whatever it is you're going through. There's a major breakthrough coming. There's like, what I like to say is, don't give up before the miracle. Don't give up before the rainbow presents itself. And Maya Angelou would say, there's a rainbow in the clouds just for you. So even when we're in our darkest hours, there will be something beautiful revealed at some point. We have to remember, this is a life of polarity. There's a lot of duality playing out. For every yin, there's a yang, and the masculine, the feminine. When you're imbalanced, when you are swinging on the pendulum of life, as I've been saying for so long, I don't even know where I picked that up. It became second nature for me to recognize that the way to explain duality is that we're on a pendulum swinging in this life. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. For one half, there's a whole. When you put them back together, that's neutrality. So when we're imbalanced, when we're in deep rest or we're in anxiety, or there's a neutrality for the two of them, and it's when you're in the present. Deep rest is sitting with the past. Anxiety is anticipation of the future. But when you are in your wholeness, when you are here now in this, neither exists. So always checking in too, to where are you in your polarity swinging? Are you on that pendulum all the way over here, excited? Or are you all the way over here, upset that you're no longer on the excitement side? So when one door closes, an even bigger one opens. Always remember that. Quando si chiude una porta, si apre una poltrone. So the bigger door opens after the little one closes. Never give up before that miracle, because there's a big presentation coming right for you. And you know, sometimes it feels like, well, where the hell is it? I've not always been the most patient person. Patience, woof. Isn't that a teacher? I'm telling you, like, life. Oh my gosh. It's not in my time. Where is it? I'm expecting it now. Why doesn't it look like this? I'm a total goof about it. I know myself. I have those moments where I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to adult. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to make that phone call. I don't want to have to, you know, like all the adult stuff that are part of a lot of people will call it slave system. But in all actuality, make a game out of it. Give yourself an opportunity to play with it. Find the joy like you would, like your childlike self would be like. I had to get my oil changed the other day. And I'm like, okay, let me call up and see if I can get in there now, because if I can, and I'm that person that's like, well, if I can just make this circle and get everything done in that time, everything works out. And it does. It does. If you are like that person who can find the ways to play with life, it'll be more joyful. And then life will play with you, because that's what it wants to do. It wants to respond to your exuberant excitement. It's your inner child that brings that out into the world. And so we have a lot of wisdom in us, you know, and you have to just kind of like tap into those aspects of yourself, those different archetypes. I know there's so many different talks around archetypes and, you know, the crone. We're not even going to go there. Just think of it as, you don't have to be that extreme with the labels and stuff, but that there's these different stages in your evolution and your growth in your life where you had wisdom. You still do. It's not that you did. It's just that you forgot. And sometimes you got to tap back in. So when you're in those positions of deep rest, start tapping into the wisdom that resides in you. It's like, okay, what would my inner child do? What would my older inner wise woman do? What would my teenage self do? What would my professional adult self, when I was really like killing it in such and such, you know, in your life? Like, look at the times and the periods of your life when things were working out for you and tap into that energy. Call upon your medicine, because that is your medicine for you. And you can use that too. It's not like it's gone. It's all a part of you. And again, that is just part of all the tools you have at your disposal. It's so easy to want to go seeking it out outside of ourselves. It really is. Yeah, just be still and know. And it's Gnosis, know, gnosis, because it's within you. It's a wisdom. It's an integration. We can go out into the world and, you know, when you're young, you have to have experience. And as you get older and you've had experience, and the integration of the knowledge and the awarenesses also becomes your wisdom. So when you get to a certain age, and even still, even as a young whippersnapper, you got wisdom too. It's just about tapping into those different periods of yourself, those different aspects, those archetypes. It's all good. I'm just chapping away. Okay. So I think I've accomplished my mission for tonight. And I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for tapping in and tuning in with me tonight. I appreciate you for listening and seeing me. It's been interesting. It's been very, I don't like the word challenging. Challenging in a good way, though. Gnosis is a genesis. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Gene. It's in us. It's in us. Yeah, challenge is actually good for us because, you know, we got to get out of our comfort zones. And so if we got to feel uncomfortable, because if we don't feel uncomfortable, then we're not growing. We don't grow inside our comfort zone. So also give yourself a pat on the back for that one. Like, oh yeah, I got to feel like crap to get out of my crap, right? Think about that. So, okay, so I feel like ish and I'm just, you know, over here pouting and then reminding myself, oh yeah, that's what I got to feel to kick my ass in gear. It is what it is, right, ladies and gents? It's your ish that'll be the one that delivers you to your grandeur. Oh, I love you too, Valley. You are so amazing. Thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you, James and Mish and Pamela. And whoever else is on this stream, live or recorded. I appreciate each and every one of you. Really, truly, just showing up is half the battle. So when you wake up in the morning, just be grateful for the fact that you have the breath of life. We should be reminded of that every single day. That is how much you are loved, is the breath you take in every moment. I have some Yoga Nidra on my channel if you haven't noticed. I also have a whole playlist of Kundalini Yoga if you want to try that out. I've got some meditations and breath work in there too. Tune in, tap in, whatever you got to do. Use the tools. Use the force. You got the tools. You got the force. That's your given. That's your power. Oh, this is always so much fun. Okay. Let me know after the stream is finished. Go into the regular comments if you would. Please click the like button and all that stuff for the algorithm because I don't know what's going on with all that stuff. Sharing is caring. If you know somebody who could actually appreciate and work with this, I don't know. There's a lot of struggle going on out in the world. I get it. This is a mental health crisis we're going through, mostly because they're encouraging the issues, not, you know, going to the root cause. So check your nervous system, strengthening it with the breath work. And sharing is caring. Subscribe, click the notification bell if you haven't already. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can collaborate. But also, the reason I said go to my comments in the regular comments, let me know if you'd be interested in doing a body awareness workshop with me. I've just subscribed so that I could do Zoom calls and create a collaboration on Zoom. So I love you all. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being you. Checking on me too, because I know I appreciate that, James, by the way. And yes, you tapped in. So, mwah, 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 I love you. Have a wonderful evening.